In DeFi, code doesn't just move data, it moves money. In this episode, we're going to go into the engine room of Freely to see how the team built a reliable, secure payout system on Stellar. Every global business that works with remote talent has the same common problem: paying people across different countries, currencies, and banking systems. Traditional solutions are expensive, slow, and unreliable. Blockchains can fix this, but there are trade-offs. Let's dive into how the Freely payout system works.
Basically, we're focusing on users who receive money from one place, specifically one country, for instance, the US, and they want to distribute this money into different users in another country, like the Philippines. So we've been speaking with like an influencer house where they receive money from YouTube, TikTok, or any other of these social platforms. And then the money they receive from the US, they want to split it to different influencers in the Philippines. So that's what we use to design our system. We need to first have all of the recipients registered in the platform, all of their bank details, either their e-wallet or whatever payment method they prefer. And then once they're registered and the money is already in the wallet, through programming, we can just split the payments into each of these individual recipients.
But building this presented some serious technical challenges and required a robust architecture stack. Why Stellar? The decision came down to three key factors: speed, cost, and the Anchor ecosystem. I mean, what are the benefits of using blockchain, and then specifically the Stellar blockchain?
Well, the benefit is in the remittance part, in the money transfer part, because we're receiving the money in US dollars, and then it's not going to be necessarily split in also US dollars, but rather in Filipino pesos. So that's where the blockchain technology is very useful. I know that Stellar has like a bulk disbursement platform, but that's for like massive payouts. And in this case, we are not in that position yet. Like, we can still scale up to a couple hundreds of users without really needing this very specific technology. But if that's the case where we eventually scale to like more and more users, we can then shift towards something like that.
I just wanted to chime in quickly as well that a big advantage is the fees of using something like Stellar, where the gas fees are inherently cheaper than someone who wants to just transfer using a different blockchain, as well as the actual FX we had with the partnering exchange using Stellar USDC, which was our primary method to transfer, was more beneficial than transferring USD to the pesos. So our clients will actually have a cheaper one-to-one exchange rate, which is a huge benefit for them.
Okay, Jose, would you be able to give us a technical overview of the architecture that you've used to build the payout system, from like the front-end user interface through to the back-end on-chain logic?
Sure, I can share my screen and show you like a demo of how it's going to be looking. So, well, this is basically how the dashboard is looking right now. First, I'll just go through the recipients part, because adding new recipients is very easy, but we need to have all of their information so that we can do that. Once we register someone, we can either save it as a person or as a business. In this case, let's just proceed with saving a person. For instance, myself, I can add my email or whatever. It's not necessary. We're trying to build like the best UX around this. We don't have to ask for a lot of details. For instance, the Philippines and e-wallet. For the e-wallet, we need a mobile number. I'm just going to put some random information here. We could add the billing address, not necessary, but it's there if we need it. And then once the recipient is saved, we can just go to the bulk disbursement thing. We can either send money directly here just as a single payout, but if we want to split one payment into different recipients, we can do it through the bulk disbursement section. All of this is still happening off-chain. So we can just choose to create a new disbursement. Here we're going to select who we want to make the disbursement to. For instance, 2 people. And it's going to be, let's say, $100 to myself and then 50 to this other person. We just check everything looks right. And then here it's not going to be making the process, the money disbursement immediately. We are creating in the background a queue system. Why are we doing it like this? Because we need to make sure that every single transaction executes correctly. So if one of them fails, we can make sure that we are retrying the system. Because since we are working with possibly a lot of different anchors, so there can be many things that go wrong in a single transaction, and it's not going to be the same sending to Philippines than sending to Mexico, for instance. So there are a lot of moving pieces here in the background. So we need to make sure that we're able to retry all of those in case something happens. We can either then generate the receipts and then just give a follow-up on every single transaction that's being done.
This means that business can deposit USD with an anchor in the United States and instantly have USDC tokens on Stellar. A freelancer in the Philippines can receive those tokens and withdraw pesos through a local anchor without waiting days for settlement. For developers building the next generation of financial applications, this infrastructure is invaluable. You get all the benefits of blockchain transparency, programmability, speed, low costs, without losing the connection to the traditional financial system. Here's where things get interesting from a technical perspective. Freely combines multiple systems and frameworks to create a unique and seamless Web3 experience. What framework are you using for the front end?
Oh yeah, that framework is Next.js. It's very, very easy to get started with, and we can just deploy that almost for free and have a working prototype that people can already start testing.
And have you got something on the back end then which kind of queues these transactions? What software are you using, like Node or Rust?
Yeah, well, Next.js has some serverless infrastructure that we can leverage. So it's not necessarily like a Node.js server on the background, but rather some functions. There's some tricky part with that because these functions have like a lifetime of at the most 15 to 30 seconds. So we need to make sure that every single process executes in less than that. And so that's why for the queuing technology, we're using a system called Upstash, which is separate from Next.js. And Upstash integrates very well with this serverless infrastructure. So they make sure that they're triggering some of these edge functions, and then all of the process runs as isolated processes in these serverless environments.
So you've got the serverless functions running in the cloud, I take it. How do you then go from that to like a Web3 environment or like to execute transactions on chain?
Oh, that was a very, very big challenge. And something interesting here with Freely is that we are building on top of the smart wallets. And we've been exploring a little bit with the policy signers. There's one thing here. When we're using a transaction with the smart wallet, that is built on top of the passkeys, and the passkeys requires a web environment. So it prompts for my passkey. I use either the Face ID on the phone or the fingerprint on the computer. But you cannot do that on these serverless environments. But we can do something very interesting here, which is to create a policy signer with permissions to the main wallet. And then using the credentials for these policy signers, we can then trigger those processes in any other isolated environment. We just need to make sure we're keeping these credentials safe.
Freely's off-chain services handle CSV parsing, payment validation, and queue management. When everything is ready, they call simple, focused, on-chain functions that execute transfers atomically. While building Freely, Jose and Joseph found themselves needing tools that simply didn't exist. One of the great things about Web3 is you have this community of builders sharing ideas, tools with each other. The other thing I was going to ask you was, you mentioned you built some dev tools while you were putting this together. Would you be able to demo some of them?
Yeah, that's a different platform, but I can show that to you. We needed to build something to test out creating smart wallets, and then all of the policy signers and the attaching policy, which are permissions to these signers. So I created just like a completely separate project so that I can test things out quickly in either in a local environment or also as a deployed environment. By the way, this is completely open source. I've already shared it with a couple of developers on Stellar. This is just like a separate tool where I can just quickly create a smart wallet. And then once I have the smart wallet, I can test calling specific Sorbonne functions. Here's what I can see now. I can either fund the wallet, and also I can add signers to this wallet. So what's interesting here is that these smart wallets, they use a different type of address rather than the regular G address. And right now, as it is, this signer has full permissions under this account. So I'll just use a very popular demo in the Stellar community, which is Tyler's do math demo. So I'm just going to try calling the do math function here. I can do it with the main wallet, or I can do it with this new signer. This new signer shouldn't ask for the passkey, while the main wallet should ask for the passkey. Awesome. And then I could add policies to this signer. The policies are the permissions. So for instance, if I would want to restrict this signer just to be able to make the do math function calling, then I wouldn't be able to, for example, call the transfer function on the native Stellar asset contract, which is XLM. I don't have the policy ready here, but here is how I would add it. I've built all of these separate isolated environments so that I could test things out for the permissions and for the policy signers for the smart wallets we're building in Freely.
And all of this is open source on your GitHub repository, right?
Yeah, it should be on my GitHub profile.
Building production systems that can handle real money is a challenge that comes with great responsibility. When you're processing actual payroll, every edge case becomes critical. Your users and their employees are relying on the code that you write.
Well, something very interesting is that a lot of anchors, or in general, in Web3 like environments, these companies or these service providers do not offer sandbox environments. So they're just asking us out to test things live in production while they are actually moving real money. So that's like something we've been struggling with. We have been able to successfully make some tests to sending some money into an anchor in the Philippines. It was a little scary at the beginning because it's you regularly you want to test things out first before actually getting money involved. But that's how we had to do it. So we're just adding like a lot of test suites on the background, but we need to make sure that everything's working properly at the very beginning.
The team built comprehensive test suites that simulate all kinds of scenarios. They test with artificial assets on Stellar's testnet before processing real transactions. If we go into any block explorer, here I'm using Stellar.expert, you'll see that we're on the public network here. We can see things like assets, the performance of the ledger over time, and a number of accounts on the system. At the top here in the right-hand corner, we can see there's this network public. We can change this to testnet. The testnet is a completely separate network. It's a duplicate of the real production network, which is used just by developers and people who want to experiment without using real assets. You can see we have our assets here, and if we go into USDC, you can get a list of recent transactions, and we can look at people's accounts, and the Block Explorer works in exactly the same way. Now, if we want to use a testnet, what we need to do is create an account and then fund that account. And we can get some free testnet funds to do that. If you go across to lab.stellar.org, you can go to account, create account key pair, and then make sure this is on testnet and generate a key pair. We then click this fund account with Friendbot. And what that will do is it will send you some XLM funds that you can use for testing to pay for transaction fees and funds like that. We can view this on Stellar Expert. You can see we have an account balance now of 10,000 XLM, which is enough to deploy a lot of contracts and do a lot of testing. With the 3D product in testing, it was time to start thinking about deploying the product to mainnet. So how close are you to mainnet deployment, and is there a timeline or a date in place at this stage?
We're approximately 2 months out from mainnet deployment. There's basically been some delays with on-ramping partners, signing those contracts, and even testing. A lot of companies in the crypto space let you test only with live credentials. So it's been very time consuming and making sure the risks are low, there's high amounts of security when you're testing with real money. regardless of that, there's still a lot of time in setting up those partnerships, making sure they are input properly. And one of the delays is with a US partner we're working with.
Having great technology is only half the battle. The other half is finding the right customers and proving that your solution actually works better than existing alternatives. Joseph's background in traditional finance is crucial at this stage. He understands sales cycles, compliance requirements, and decision-making processes that businesses go through when evaluating new financial tools. For the team to launch this product and gain initial traction, they needed to find customers. What does a perfect customer look like?
When describing our perfect customer, it's not us describing it, it was actually told to us. So I think anybody who's creating a startup can agree that what they're doing is trying to solve a problem that was told to them. And for us, we spoke to an influencer house and they basically outright told us every couple of days, they receive a payment either from YouTube, TikTok, into one bank account. Then they spend 2.5 hours each time getting the bank details, getting the local payment method. If that influencer is preferring bank transfer or to their digital wallet, and sorting out and organizing and then doing these payments themselves. So it was just so clear that, hey, there's companies that are receiving payments that need to disperse the funds to multiple people, and it's costing them a lot of time. And when we dove into it more, you realize there's a lot of industries that are doing the same thing. So we started reaching out to employment of record companies, people who are finding labor in the Philippines that is cheaper than the US and providing that offshore labor to, like, let's say an executive who's too busy and needs an assistant. And they're receiving money from all these executives into a bank account, and then they need to be dispersing the funds to all the employees that they're finding in the Philippines. And that's how it all started. And this is where we're trying to focus on. And we think this is the ideal customer, and looking into the solutions that will best provide them the ability to disperse those funds immediately and in the preferred method through blockchain, through Stellar, and through our platform.
For developers interested in financial applications, Freely's story offers a blueprint for designing products for the real world. In our next episode, we'll follow the team as they take their next steps towards launching Freely.